Today we're gonna be doing another lyrical analysis for the Tortured Poets department. And I was kind of struggling to decide what song to do next, but I figured I want to do all of them, so let's just go chronologically and tick them off. And so we have the title track next. And I think this track also had a lot of us confused. So it's actually a pretty good one to talk about. Like, who are these people she's talking about? What is the Chelsea Hotel? So let's dive in. So she begins, "You left your typewriter at my apartment, straight from the Tortured Poets department. I think some things I never say, like who uses typewriters anyway?" So right off the bat, Taylor is letting us know that this phrase here, Tortured Poets department, is not something that she's taking very seriously. She almost says it sarcastically, mockingly. She's making fun of the person that she's written this song about. Now, in my Tortured Poets department first impressions, I talked about how I didn't think there was any way this was about Maddie Healy, because I didn't think she would name like her whole era after this, but obviously I underestimated what that relationship meant to her. So we will see as the lyric progresses why this is really about Maddie. And again, as a side note, not that that's an important thing to the song, but I do always like doing a little bit of speculation. So essentially, he leaves a typewriter at her apartment and she just keeps her comments to herself, where she's thinking like, why do you use a typewriter? And she's kind of seeing this image of him where he makes himself look very tortured. So basically saying that's kind of the image that he is portraying of himself. Like, he's a tortured poet, and with this typewriter, he's kind of encompassing this image of himself. And so she continues, "But you're in self-sabotage mode, throwing spikes down on the roads. But I've seen this episode and still loved the show." So him being on self-sabotage mode basically means that he's out to get himself. He's making really poor choices and potentially affecting the relationship through these choices. But regardless of this, she chooses to stick by him because she's seen the episode and she still loves the show, meaning that it doesn't matter the difficulties that happen throughout, she's still willing to go through it with him, which is something difficult to do. When someone is self-sabotaging, it's really hard to stand by or to be around someone who's in a good spot but kind of makes the situation for themselves harder. And I have to say, this particular line reminds me of Exile. I think I've seen this film before and I didn't like the ending. It's kind of contrasting, right? Who else decodes you and who's gonna hold you like me? And who's gonna know you if not me? So again, I feel like his self-sabotage is playing a role in destroying the relationship, and she's kind of questioning him like, well, if you don't want to be with me, who do you think is going to understand you the same way that I do? Because even though things are going really well for them, he's kind of taking a step back. And she wonders who's going to understand you the way I do, maybe in reference to his quirks like having this typewriter. And so the chorus continues, "I laughed in your face and said, you're not Dylan Thomas and I'm not Patti Smith. This ain't the Chelsea Hotel. We're modern idiots. And who's gonna hold you like me?" So let's start out with these names. Dylan Thomas was a Welsh poet and writer, and Patti Smith is an American singer, songwriter, poet, artist, author. And the Chelsea Hotel is a famous hotel in Manhattan, which has become famous through its history and due to the variety of celebrities that have stayed there, including both Dylan Thomas and Patti Smith. So she starts off with laughing in his face. Again, kind of similar to the start of the song where she's making fun of his typewriter. So he said something so ridiculous to Taylor that she couldn't help but laugh at him and try to put him back into his place, bring things down a notch, take him off the pedestal. So she says, "You and I are not like world-renowned poets," although that could be argued for Miss Swift. She says they are simply modern idiots, that they cannot be compared with the ranks from the past of famous poets and writers. That he's maybe just overthinking the whole situation and just needs to take a step back and like realize who they really are. And then she continues by saying that no one's gonna hold him, touch him, or know him the way she does. The song continues, she says, "You smoked, then ate 7 bars of chocolate." People believe that this is an Easter egg pointing at the 1975 Matty Healy's band, as they have a song called Chocolate that is about weed. She continues, "We declared Charlie Puth should be a bigger artist." This line basically just shows that they bonded over music and shared interests, shared opinions. "I scratch your head, you fall asleep, like a tattooed golden retriever." And some people think that first line is a reference to a 1975 song where he says, "It's not the same when I scratch my own head." And she's describing him as a tattooed golden retriever. Again, Maddie Healy has a lot of tattoos, but she's basically saying tattoos might be making him look very tough on the outside, but on the inside, he's really a softie. And again, this further shows that this song is about Maddie Healy, because at least Joe doesn't have any tattoos that I think that we are aware of. And the song continues, "But you awake with dread, pounding nails in your head, but I've read this one where you come undone. I chose this cyclone with you. What she's basically saying here is that sometimes he wakes up in a mood, not feeling quite himself, maybe with some hints of depression, but she says that she understands this side of him and she accepts him through all the struggles. She has read this before, so she knows it, she understands it, and she chooses to go through the storm with him. Then the chorus repeats and we get to the bridge, which is actually a very interesting part of the song. Sometimes I wonder if you're gonna screw this up with me, but you told Lucy you'd kill yourself if I ever leave, and I had said that to Jack about you, so I felt seen. The speculation here is that Lucy is Lucy Dacus from Boy Genius. I'm sorry if I butchered her last name. As you may know, Phoebe Bridgers is part of Boy Genius, and she was one of the opening acts for the Eras tour. So here she's saying that Maddie said this to Lucy, and Taylor goes and tells Jack about it because it makes her feel more understood. Maybe Jack was not kind of there for that relationship, like he didn't fully agree that they were a good match. And I mean, she talks about how she was worried that he was gonna leave her, but this gave her reassurance and she felt like talking about it would give her more of a place and that she would be able to prove this point that things are actually good between her and him. But then she says, everyone we know understands why it's meant to be, because we're crazy. So she's also justifying that their friends understand why they are together. Apparently they both probably have these type of quirks, they're both a little bit crazy, and so they make a good match. And we continue. So tell me, who's gonna know me? At dinner, you take my ring off my middle finger and put it on the one people put wedding rings on, and that's the closest I've come to my heart exploding. So overall, this album has a very strong focus on the idea of marriage. It's really like a recurring theme. So Taylor's talking about how the act of him removing one of her rings and putting it into the wedding ring finger makes her heart explode. It shows that she does have actually a very deep desire for getting married. It makes her feel happy, excited, nervous, like her heart is just exploding. In So Long London, she talks about how she died on the altar waiting for the proof of a ring, basically. So she was expecting marriage, but that never came out of her relationship with Joe. He was never, I don't want to say he was never committed enough to her, but he never showed that to her through a ring or through a proposal. And I actually think that maybe she was in denial of how important that was to her, because this whole messaging really contrasts Midnights, an album where she's constantly asking people to get off her back about marriage and how the only way people see you is either as a one-night stand or a bride. So there's a big contrast in messaging between these two albums. And then the chorus repeats and we get to the end of the song. And something I didn't notice all the times that I listened to the song until doing the song analysis is that she changes one of the lyrics at the end to be, who's going to troll you? I suppose she means that they really teased each other a lot, but maybe she's also making a reference to her writing these songs about him. So all in all, the song talks about her relationship with Matty Healy and kind of its oncoming, how he basically started to self-sabotage. And she tried to tell him, like, I'm here for you in your hard times, but I guess this wasn't enough. And yes, I know we all thought that this might have been more about Joe because of this whole Tortured Man's Club, and maybe she drew inspiration from that, but I think if we look at the lyrics, it's pretty clear that this is not about Joe in any way. And as we see, she's just mocking Maddie, kind of making fun. The song explores the beginning of the end of that relationship, and basically how she was willing to go to lengths for him, but he just kept self-sabotaging. And she wonders and asks him, who's gonna be able to be there for you the way that I am? Who's gonna decode you? Who's gonna know you? Who's gonna understand you? And she assures him that nobody will. Did I miss anything? Let me know below. And as always, thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!